We're doing our season in reflection series, breaking it down by position group and the offensive line, right? We did D-line last week. We're going to do O-line this week, starting the trenches. Bates and I talked a little bit about it, and you guys will hear that here soon. But to me, like this roster and the way that we built it, and we keep beating the same drum here, but like deepest it's ever been, most talented it's ever been, like top to bottom. He mentioned Steve Troutwine and the job he's doing, and I think having a consistent figure in that room has been really good for the development of these guys. You know, a lot of these guys have only been under Steve, and Bates talked about it. Like he came in under Herb Hand, was then with Lime Grover. So that when you have different philosophies, and there's like a million ways to skin the cat, people think different things and technique about playing the offensive line position. It's probably one of the more diverse positions from that standpoint in football. You know, there's some negotiables there depending on what you have. And I think just having consistency there has been really good for us. And I mentioned this, like we were kind of a jack of all trades when it came to like identity, right? Like we were zone scheme, we were gap scheme, we ran counter, we ran, you know, our toss and our edge run game. Like we ran so many different techniques and so many different schemes that like it was hard to really zero in on our bread and butter. And I thought overall we were a very efficient team running the football, but we just lacked some of these explosives. And that again could play into some of the stuff with the running back room, whatever. I don't think that was the case, but people complained about them. People talked about it. You know, they were this like pass pro the whole night. I thought they played really well. I thought they were physical when they needed to be. And I think it's really hard. It's an easy position to over criticize and point the finger at, but it's really hard to understand all that goes into it. And I think outside looking in, big picture, this year, you know, they're starting to turn that corner, and I think they're starting to get back to that consistent level of expectation of greatness and dominance at the line of scrimmage. And, you know, Olu is a perfect example. Kid who's been through the system, was unbelievable. Stayed, going to be the first tackle taken. You know, I think we're just going to continue to reload there. And I think we need to. If the foundational shift that we're talking about is going to happen, I think it starts in the trenches. We've said this over and over again. I think this offensive line is on the track that they're on. But that's my overall thoughts on that room and the way that they played. I think we're going to zero in on some stuff with Andy Koltanecki in terms of what he wants to do and just get these guys coached up the right way, get them really confident, and get them tight. Bates talked about it. It almost has nothing to do with football in that room, and I said this too. It's like a sacred room, dude. Like the offensive linemen are weird as shit. They're
always
my favorite guys to hang out with, but they are their own thing. And when they're their own thing and people understand that and let them roll and they're confident in what they're doing and they know that this game is won or lost on our backs, it's a scary thing. And I think when you look at the teams that have that, the Michigans, the Georgias, like you can make the argument for Alabama still, you know, like they're really freaking good, man. And I think we're right there.
Yeah. I mean, you said it. It always starts in the trenches, whether we know it's not the most glamorous position, so the stats don't ring off and people don't want to talk about them, but you just said it. The top programs over the history of college football in general, it starts up front. If you want, we all want the offense to be, new and improved. It's going to start up front, as you said, replacing Olu. We got the transfer kid coming in. We'll see if he steps into that role. But, there's some young guys, I'm sure, that are hungry for that. And that's what we talk about, the competition part. We're deep. But if we just have guys in spots, that doesn't mean anything. These guys have to compete. And as we said before, with the quarterback room and any room, iron sharpens iron. So what are we going to do to get that best product out there to ultimately get this offense new and improved, revamped, like we said? And it'll be fun to watch. Definitely starts up front. And I'm interested to see what that identity kind of morphs into with Coach Koltanecki. As we said, we struggled to find it this past season, but we saw glimpses of, like, you said it every week, we're a ball control offense. We had the guys up front to kind of, I won't say dominate the line of scrimmage, but, grind it out, I would say.
Like we stay on schedule.
Stay on schedule.
like we weren't as explosive as like even the 26. Like probably Saquon had a lot to do with that. Like that's not nothing against Nick and those guys and K. But like Saquon was a different bird, dude. Like
he made a lot of plays for himself.
You gave him the ball 20 times in a game, like he's going to rip 5 big ones off like, anywhere.
Right.
So I think that had a lot to do with it, but. These guys, man, and again, I think it goes back to the common theme of what we talked about, like the whole team, right? What we want to see from this whole team this offseason, it really has nothing to do with physical development, really even scheme.
Mm-hmm. It's like you said, it's just
6 inches between their ears. Like, and I think if this offensive line group gels fast, everybody else will fall asleep.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Definitely the bulk of the puzzle. And you mentioned, the quarterbacks, I'll mention both guys. They have to be in those rooms. And like you said, the O-line's their own thing, but you were right there with them, an extension of them. And I think the quarterback, has to be an extension of every group, in some form or fashion. You really will,
Yeah, you gotta intermingle, you gotta mold, you gotta be a chameleon of sorts when it comes to being able to relate to a lot of different guys. And I think that's
because the O-line is a lot different than the receivers.
I definitely talked to Deshaun and hung out and had fun with Deshaun in a lot different manner than I hung out and talked to Angelo Mangiero, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. That's the way it is. Like it's just
right.
And if you want to have a guy at the court, and I think that's where Drew can make a lot of strides too, is just like being able to ingratiate himself across the roster, across the different rooms. And if I was him, these boys up front, especially getting like Nolan Ricci in, a guy who comes from a program in Wisconsin that has had a ton of history and success from an offensive line standpoint, maybe getting some of that perspective and bringing that, and how quickly does he not feel weird about like pressing some of those lines, right? Like I think that's the other thing too, is like being open to change and being open to different thought processes and how to get things done. Like, not that Penn State hasn't been good. It's just like, how can we take some things maybe from Nolan's experience up there at Wisconsin that could help us be better, right? So I almost think the development of this room really is not X's and O's or like scheme. You know what I mean? We're losing a big piece. Let's get another one in here. Let's get tighter, and let's be the focal point for the entire mindset shift in this program. And that's the type of power an offensive line room has.